Hello, I'm Jenna Mikus of QUT School of Architecture and Built Environment in Brisbane, Australia. I'm a PhD student in engineering and a sessional academic in design and business. I'm also the founder and managing principal of a health-based design consulting firm called Eudaemonic and sit on international advisory boards that specialize in ensuring health and equity in the built environment, such as the Well Building Standard, Engineers Without Borders, and Green Tech International. My primary objective is to design for flourishing health and well-being. My research builds on 20 plus years of advisory work conducted with public and private clients around the world. I'm here to talk about some of my recent work, especially as it relates to what I've termed as designing for eudaemonic well-being, or doing eudaemonic design in the built environment to amplify well-being, playing off of the AMPS, or Architecture, Media, Politics, and Society acronym relating to this event. I'd like to begin by paying my respects to the First Nation owners of the lands upon which I work, study, and teach at QUT in Brisbane, Australia, the Turrbal and Yagara people. I pay my respects to their elders, laws, and customs, and I recognize the lands have always been places of teaching, research, and learning, and that their lands were never ceded. First, it might be helpful to share a little about my background. I'm from the Washington, D.C. area, where I've been off and on for the past 20 years. My work and study have taken me around North and South America, Europe, Asia, and now Australia. About halfway through my strategy consulting career, I fell in love with buildings and people-focused design. This PhD builds off of this passion. I have a bit of a diverse background. To date, much of my work has focused on a mixture of engineering, design, and business. The first decade of my career was focused on service design and change management, activities I did for the US and Australian government. As I transitioned from the first to the second decade of my work, after pursuing a master's in sustainable environmental design, I began to focus on work relating to smart buildings and human-focused behavior in health at small consulting firms. I now do research in equitable health-based design across people, place, and technology in my consultancy called the Eudaemonic, based on Aristotle's concept of eudaimonia. A few years ago, I came across Aristotle's concept of eudaimonia, which equates to optimal health and well-being. I have brought this concept to the built environment as a new paradigm for health-based design. My PhD focuses on the concept of designing for eudaimonia, or flourishing human health, and exploring how best to do that in buildings, and more specifically in the home. Now for some of the problems that factor into designing for health in buildings. Over the past year and a half, we felt the significant impact of COVID-19 in our lives and the importance of our built environment on our health and wellness. Over 98% of people on Earth spend 90% of their lifetimes in buildings. And according to researchers out of Harvard, buildings can make you sick or they can keep you well. What if we consider designing environments for thriving health and overarching well-being? What would that look like? And what would that look like for some of the more extraordinary occupants and demographics, especially as we enter a period of extreme population aging in which people are living longer, are more diverse, and more technically savvy? The primary case study upon which my research is based relates to designing for older adult health at home to better understand how to design for them and potentially for other demographics by involving these older adults meaningfully in the design process. Because much of my research is based on addressing problems relating to the design of older adult health at home, here are a few noteworthy problems or societal challenges that are of consequence to my work. Problem 1, countries around the world are experiencing population aging. More people will live to the age of 100, and with that, new challenges will arise relating to this 100-year life prevalence. While these extra years can be a gift to many, they're accompanied by personal and societal challenges relating to quality of health and environmental support of that health. According to the World Health Organization, if people can experience these extra years of life in good health, and if they live in a supportive environment, their ability to do the things that they value will be little different from that of a younger person. Therefore, it is crucial that we understand what constitutes a health supportive environment. Problem 2. Recent research from the American Association of Retired Persons, or ARP in the US, and Global Center for Modern Aging, or GCMA in Australia, show a clear preference to stay at home as people age. According to a 2011 survey by ARP in the US, 90% of people 65 and over preferred to stay at home as they got older. Research published last year by the GCMA, shown here, echoes this truth in an Australian context. Their findings describe that the desire to stay at home, even as circumstances change, increases with age, but underscore how older adults are not making the plans needed to make the staying at home a true reality. Thus, there is a need to design for this group and enable them to curate a space that's right for them, or to age in the right place, as the GCMA terms it. Problem 3 relates to the pervasive exclusion of older adults in most design processes, including those exploring spatial and digital home elements. As Don Norman, the former VP at Apple and director of the UC San Diego Design Lab, wrote in his Truth-Telling Fast Company piece in mid-2019, the world is designed against the elderly. He beseeches designers to value the lived experience older adults bring and suggests designing for their crystallized intelligence that they offer. It's important that they be well designed for and, when possible, included in the design process to avoid more missed opportunities. And it's important to engage them creatively for design that benefits them and potentially other user groups. Roger Coleman, the first person to define the term inclusive design, states how fresh approaches are needed to bridge the gulf between mainstream design and older adult-focused design. By combining fresh perspective with unique creative methods, it can transform disability-related design that results in what he calls an exciting gateway to product innovation and a more user-friendly future for all. This research takes on a problematized approach to this complex subject matter. So when thinking about the noteworthy problems and challenges just mentioned, my main question is, how can homes be designed to help curate an environment that supports and amplifies optimal health and wellness for older adults and for others? One potential answer I'm exploring is designing around Aristotle's concept of eudaimonia, previously mentioned. Alan Waterman of UPenn asserts that psychologists and other social scientists have a significant role to play in evaluating normative questions as to how people ought to live. In his The Best Within Us book, pictured here, and related publications, Waterman and other positive psychologists explore how to design for eudaimonic well-being. I'm most interested in understanding the potential in designing proactively for eudaimonic well-being in the built environment. I'm doing this by considering core philosophy and positive psychology concepts centered around independence, agency, and self-determination. Now for a brief synopsis of my case study work thus far. I've spent the last year in close engagement with older adults in Australia, focusing on co-designing for eudaimonic well-being at home. To do so, I recruited and am finishing work with older adults and designers through Australia, doing all work 100% virtually from Brisbane. In the co-design work, I collaborate with participants to consider designing for elements of philosophy via eudaimonia and core psychology needs. And I centered the design work around co-design activities and creative methods as provocations. Given that I had to redesign my research to allow for 100% virtual engagement due to COVID, I connected with industry and academic contexts who specialize in remote engagement. I cataloged best practices in remote design research from companies like IDEO, Frog, and Portable, and tweaked these for the purposes of my research and my user groups. These were then formulated into a phased research approach. Phase 1 focused on exploring interrelationships between older adults and their spaces using interviews and cultural probes. Phase 2 was on visualizing and defining a eudaimonic well-being environment. And phase 3, where we are now, is all about finalizing the design guidelines and final principles. To do this work, I have used Zoom to conduct interviews, and I shipped off physical cultural probe design packages to participants to complete in their homes in situ, so that they could consider their homes while doing activities relating to and while in their homes. In phase 2, I conducted virtual workshops via Zoom using the online whiteboard platform Miro, and building on data captured in phase 1. Enabling the participants to see what we were working on as we talked was felt to be empowered by many, especially as they attended from the comfort of their homes, something necessary given the prevalence of lockdown in many areas of Australia where participants lived. We are now in phase 3, validating elements of the framework, again using Zoom and Miro. Now, I won't be able to share the full final outcome with you today, but I can give you a sneak peek of some of the high-level trends we're noticing as of now that will inform the final principles. I I recently came across these mind map images by Paul Foreman when searching for visuals relating to themes encountered thus far in my research. Some of the themes include passion meeting purpose and personal growth, learning, loving, and living, and recognizing the present moment, and natural joys and marveling at the beauty of the planet. The feedback on the process and its effects thus far have been incredibly positive. Participants have found the process to be genuinely interesting and feel more satisfied and motivated to improve their environments and themselves. Therefore, usage of this approach is proposed not only to address optimal physical, mental, and social health needs proactively, but also to encourage occupants, that is, older adults and potentially other demographics, to be their intrinsically motivated best selves, thus promoting eudaemonic well-being or flourishing health and well-being at home and in society. Here are a few final key takeaways to wrap up. In my research, I aim for practical application of theory, bridging the worlds of industry and academia, where I find myself. 3 key takeaways to note include the potential in employing this approach of designing with and for older adults or members of the digital divide as an approach towards designing for all. The importance of involving older adults in designing effectively, inclusively, and even inventively via co-design and creative methods. And the potential of designing for amplified human health and well-being through my proposed approach of eudaemonic design. Please feel free to reach out to me at the email addresses or via the Twitter and LinkedIn handles on the slide. Thank you for your time and attention.